Hey everyone, welcome to another safety meeting. This month we're going to go over first aid, CPR, and some vehicle policy. Our agenda: acting in an emergency, wound care, some injuries, sudden illness, poisoning, allergic reactions, cold or heat emergencies, rescuing and moving victims, CPR and choking, vehicle policy, and then summary. Acting in an emergency. You have 4 goals when an emergency occurs. Someone gets hurt. First, keep that person alive. Second one, prevent their condition from worsening. Give first aid until help arrives, as long as you're trained in that first aid that they're needing. Ensure victim receives any needed medical care. Make sure that you talk to medical professionals when they arrive and tell them what happened, how it happened if you know, what's going on with the victim as much as you know, so they can give them the proper care that they need. Call 911. Use proper PPE to prevent any bloodborne pathogens that are possible. Check the victim. Put them in recovery position. You got to make sure they're all right and make sure they can recover best they can. Wound care. You want to control any bleeding by using gauze and applying pressure. If the wound is dirty, clean it the best of your ability. If the victim's impaled by an object, don't remove that object. Let medical professionals do that. Just keep the victim as comfortable as possible. If the victim is burned, remove the heat source as long as it is safe for you to do that. Any electrical burns will require immediate attention and 911 needs to be called. Cool any burn with running cold or cool potable water for at least 10 minutes. Signs of shock are cool and clammy or sweating and pale or bluish skin. Make sure you treat shock. Have the victim lie down, raise his or her legs or feet. Keep body temperature close to normal. If they're cold, put a blanket on them. If they're hot, get them to shade, get them to a cool area. Keep their body temperature as regulated as possible. Bone, joint, muscle, head, and spine injuries. You want to help prevent movement of the injured area. So try to splint it. If it's a broken arm, use a magazine or something. Keep it from moving. Have possible more injuries later on. Follow the RICE acronym for most injuries of bone, joint, or muscles. Rest, ice, compress, and elevate. Spinal injuries. Hold the head and neck to restrict any movement. Concussion. Make sure they don't do any physical activities. Do not give them painkillers if they have a concussion, and seek medical attention. Skull fractures. I know I said clean the wound best as possible before, but if it's up in the skull, do not clean it. Cover with sterile dressing and do not apply pressure because you don't want part of their skull to break off and possibly puncture their brain. Sudden illness, poisoning, and allergic reaction. There's heart attack. Make sure you treat with the aspirin or any type of heart medicine they may have. Angina, it might feel like a heart attack, but it's not. Just get your victim calm down, sit in an area, have them breathe, gain their composure. That should go away. Stroke. Use the acronym FAST. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, time to call 911 if all those are there. Asthma. Check and see if they have a rescue inhaler if they're having an asthma attack. get it used. Diabetic emergencies. Find a sugary drink, fruit juice, something of that nature. If they're diabetic and have an emergency. Any seizure, make sure if someone starts seizing and they're standing up, don't touch them. Stay away. They could hurt you. They could hurt themselves. You do want to make sure that do your best to keep them from hitting their head on something if they fall. Poisonings, any type of poisonings, call Poison Control Center. Bites and stings, Benadryls, things like that. If it's a sting, try to get the stinger out if you can. Call in 911 if there's any type of reactions to any poisonings or stingings. Allergic reactions, that could be anything from a rash to anaphylactic shock. If they go into any type of shock, hopefully they'll have an EpiPen on them. Pull the EpiPen out, use it. You'll pull the end off of it, stab it in their thigh for 3 seconds, and then release. Call 911 immediately, get them to the emergency room. Cold and heat emergencies. For cold, we don't usually deal with that much here in Oklahoma, but there's frostbite and hypothermia. If you're getting just really cold, get to a warm place. Don't let frostbite or hypothermia set in. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke. We deal with that a whole lot more here, especially coming up these next few months. Starting to feel woozy, lightheaded, thirsty. Stop sweating, get to a cool area, sit down in the shade, drink plenty of fluids. You don't want to guzzle the fluids down. You want to sip on them. Keep from getting way too hot. Rescuing and moving victims. Never put yourself in harm's way when rescuing someone. I know it's hard to do, but if someone's in trouble and you can't safely get yourself to them, you're going to have to turn around and go. The only time you need to be rescuing someone is when it's safe for you to do it. Never move a victim unless it's warranted. If someone's hurt, there's no harm, they're not in any type of harm's way, just leave them alone, get them stabilized, make sure they have the emergency help needed on the way. The only time that it is warranted is if they're in harm's way, you're going to be in harm's way, you need to get them out of there, and it's safe to do. CPR and choking. During CPR, only if you have been trained. Make sure the scene is safe. Call 911 if there's absolutely no one around, or have someone call 911. It is still 32-inch deep chest compressions and 2 breaths. Compressions must be 100 to 120 beats per minute. The beat of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. Remember that. Continue until help arrives. CPR can get tiring. You have to continue until help arrives. If someone around you can do CPR also, switch off with them. For any choking, do abdominal thrust. Get behind them. Fist and solar plex. Hand over it. Work up. Heimlich maneuver. Driving safety policy. Driving records. New employees will have records pulled when hired, and all employees will have driving records pulled once a year. The policy is there shall be no more than 3 minor violations during the past 3 years. Make sure you're good to go on driving. Not going to be driving company vehicles if you're not. Drugs and alcohol. Vehicles will not be operated by employees if they have taken drugs, illegal, prescription, or over the counter, or consumed alcohol. Accidents. First thing you want to do in an accident, make sure everybody is okay. Next, call the police. We have to have a police report for every accident. If the police cannot make it out there, tell them that they need to email you something saying that they were not able to make it out there. We have to have that for anything that happens from there on for insurance reasons. After police, call me. My number is right here. You have my number in the email. Next, call your manager. Managers, if you have someone over you, you will contact that person. For example, Kevin, Rusty, or Ray. Make sure you collect insurance information. If you don't collect insurance information and it's not your fault, then we're still stuck with the ticket. So make sure you collect the other person's insurance information, whether it's their fault, your fault, whoever's fault. Always get the insurance. Safety driving practices. Always wear your seat belts. Everybody in the vehicle will wear their seat belts when the vehicle is in motion. Keep safe distances. Normal safe distance in passenger vehicle is 2 seconds from the rear bumper of the vehicle in front of you to your front bumper. In the bigger vehicles like the KUVs, give a little bit more distance on those. Posted speed limits will not be exceeded. If you get a ticket, it's your responsibility, not PATCO's. You were told, drive the speed limit. During fuel stops, check all the fluids. The washer fluid, all that kind of stuff. Oil, the transmission fluid. Make sure all the windows work properly. Make sure your headlights, tail lights are cleaned. Make sure the lights work properly. Even the blinkers. If there's trash in your truck, throw it away. We don't want messy trucks. Constant attention will be maintained by always being aware of road conditions and surrounding vehicles. During inclement weather conditions, appropriate adjustments to driving will be made, such as slowing down, leaving more space between vehicles, using flashers, or getting off the road completely. All company vehicles must be parked in such a way that the first move is forward. Make sure you're not backing over someone or backing into anything because you didn't park company vehicle the proper way. In the event of an accident, the driver will follow procedures of the insurance card as well as contact safety director and verbally provide an initial update. This will be followed by a more formal accident incident report. Idle times. I know it's getting hot out there. Keep your idle times to 15 minutes. The GPS is pinging at 10 minutes. We allow you 15 in the summer to try to get some of that heat off of you. Keep that heat down. If you can't find some place where it's shady and cool or somewhere inside, you are allowed to idle for 15 minutes to cool off. Don't over idle. Speeding. Remember, guys, the threshold for the speedometer for the GPS is set at 80 miles per hour. Don't go over that. Don't even try to touch it. I know speed limits in the state have gone up in certain areas. There's no reason to be driving that fast, especially in a KUV. Keep the speeds on those KUVs down. Disciplinary action. Failure to comply with vehicle policy will result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Summary. Remember your 4 goals in emergencies. Act quickly and calmly. Call 911 when necessary. Use proper PPE. Keep victims as calm and comfortable as possible. Do not perform any first aid or CPR that you have not been trained for. Keep a good driving record. Don't use drugs or alcohol when driving company vehicles. All accidents need a police report or something saying the police can't get there. Drivers and passengers will wear their seatbelts in company vehicles. No tolerance. Check all fluids during fuel stops. Contact safety director, manager if accident occurs. No electronics while driving company vehicles. Don't even be on the phone. Always use safe driving practices. If there's any questions, you can call me, you can email me. Make sure you get your fire extinguishers checked and inspected and signed off. Next thing, AEGCP will change on July 1st. That color is going to be red. So get those AEGCP forms to me. Make sure your cords are good to go. The grounding, all the grounding on them's good, and your tape color's changed. I need those forms no later than I don't have the date. I need those forms no later than July 9th. That is the Friday after the 4th. I will give you that long to get those forms to me. I need them quickly though. Alright, I hope everyone has a good, safe week. Have an amazing 4th of July next week, and be safe. We'll see y'all later.